Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to The Well, your source for the latest in the field of after school and summer learning programs. I am your host, Bruno, and today we have a very special guest in Michael Funk, Director of the After School Division at the California Department of Education. What's up, Michael?
How you doing, Bruno?
Great, great. Thank you so much for being with us. So, the question that I get asked all the time is, how did you get started in after school? How did you go from being a college basketball player to being the director of the after school division?
That's a great question, and I want to thank you, Bruno, for doing this because I've had a chance to watch some of the uh, interviews. I'm only disappointed I'm coming after Frank Escobar and Diego because no one can match Diegoisms or Frank. But anyway, I'm here, and I am happy to share my story because if I was to really self-identify and describe what my vocational identity, so to speak, I would call myself a youth worker. And that started that's probably started when I was in college because there was a in addition to playing basketball and student government and things like that, there was actually also a real culture of service. And so I volunteered working in different children's programs around the town that I went to college in, and I knew something about that was lighting my passion. It had a connection with my sense of who I need to be in the world, and so that led me to choose education as a major. And I was kind of debating whether I was going to go back to the not little, but the potato farm I grew up in Idaho,
Right,
or
right.
something. And I decided that the farm was a little bit too small. But the college I went to also had some amazing opportunities for service. And one of the summers, I was part of a small team that worked at a Algerian quarter in Paris, France.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I spend um, the summer working with children, but I spent the summer working in this intense urban environment. And you know, intense, because I'm coming from a farm. I went to college in Idaho. Nothing looks like Paris.
Right.
And one of the things one of the places they took us to before they shipped us over to Paris was to San Francisco to kind of like an urban training.
Right.
Something about San Francisco got into my blood, and I came back from that summer with saying, I think I want to work in this intense urban environment with kids, and this farm seems kind of small for me. But as there wasn't an opportunity, so I took a job as a seventh grade, eighth grade science teacher in a small farm town in Idaho, and was the basketball coach, was the track coach, in fact, I was the eighth grade head basketball coach, the JV head basketball coach, and the varsity assistant. I was the head JV football coach and the varsity assistant football coach, and I was the track coach. I did some youth work.
You sound like an after school employee.
I do.
Wear many hats.
I did everything. And then an opportunity came up for me. I was asked by a church in Boise if I would consider being their youth minister. And I did that. And that set a trajectory that I was there for maybe 6 or 7 years. And then just kind of one of the people that connected me to the whole Paris situation asked me if I would consider coordinating an effort in this denomination to help establish uh, programs for youth and families and such, um, and churches and different types of work in urban cities around the country, working with different language and cultural groups. Um, anyway, there was a very windy path. Also, I think a lot of people don't realize that we all have very interesting and dynamic stories, including some dark chapters.
Yep.
And I also, I had a very, very dark chapter where I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing vocationally. I certainly didn't even realize I would even have a chance to keep working with youth and children. And not to go into that chapter, but I think in that chapter, it was just something in me that knew I had to keep somehow working to make the lives better for kids.
Right.
Uh, and so, even though I didn't know what that was, even though I didn't know what the next day was going to hold, I was actually living in a room in a women's shelter in San Francisco, and um, one day at a time, just
Yep.
one day at a time. And I it was very complicated, but I then had just recently started the Sunset Neighborhood Beacon Center with some colleagues in San Francisco. And as it worked out, 3 or 4 months down the road, work of this chapter, I reconnected and became the director there and was the director of that program for 20 some years and almost 20 years. And of course, that was in the early days. That was when early 90s, when the youth development movement was just starting,
Right.
not just starting, kind of rekindling. None of this stuff was really new, but it was resurfacing. And and the first after school money came out of Washington, D.C., the 21st Century Funding. And so at that point, my kind of expression of my purpose in life to be a youth worker took on this form of school-based after school,
Mm-hmm.
and but also partnerships with schools in other ways. And that's why my vision of expanded learning in California is always more than just a program. I mean, this is a place where we meet the needs of kids, and this is a partnership with the school, not just in those 3 hours, but we're partnering with these people to work with these kids and whatever it takes. And a lot of times for us, that meant doing work during the school day
That's
as
right.
well as after. So I think the thing that was really important for me, though, is I had this I had this ambition when I was in college to run for political office or do something like that, and I never did. And but what I realized that ambition and that interest and that kind of passion for that part was realizing that um, if you're going to help kids and help families, there has to be policy change as well as support for them individually, because you have to work with the systems that keep pushing people down, and we have to change those. And so I always early on had a foot in the policy realm and a foot in running programs.
Mm-hmm.
My office in San Francisco was in the middle of a community center, so there was always kids around. There was always noise. I was always in touch with what was happening with kids. But I was also always going down to City Hall, and it was advocating for the first children's fund in San Francisco, and was advocating for the passage of the creation of the first bills for state after school money. And so over the course of time, I think it was my desire, and it's not always easy to keep a foot in policy and a foot in program, because program can be so demanding. But um, I found I was often in Sacramento. I was often the only person in the room who was actually still connected with the program.
Right.
There were lots of policy people. There were lots of people who were with the program, but had been 3 or 4 years back. And so I don't know. I think those two things, that passion to work with kids and the passion to stay connected to policy and to see the connection between those two, was really critical for me. And I think it really prepared me to take on this role 4 years ago as the new director of a new division. And believe me, I was intimidated like no one's business to come here. I mean, I had no idea. The jump from running a nonprofit in San Francisco to the State Department, when I didn't even know what a county office of education
Right.
was, you know. But I guess just like that dark chapter, you take it one day at a time. And what I knew is that if I really believed in my passion for what young people need and families need, and believed that the importance of system change, that, how could I not take on the chance to really work with a system the size and scope of what we have in California?
Right, and that's such an important message because real change happens at the grass tops and the grass roots, right? And
Yep.
it happens at both levels. So, Michael, having said all that, so the question continues about why do you do what you do? Why do you continue to push forward with this field and the work that you are doing to build communities and now policy change? Why do you do what you do?
I'm going to make one comment and answer that question. I want to say to everyone that often policy work is it needs to be demystified. Policy work is not it's not rocket science. It's amazingly simple if you just start to dig in. So I would just encourage people who watch this to, go to a school board meeting. That's policy work.
That's right.
Go to your school site council. That's policy work. That's you can start there, and then let if it's of interest to you, and we need advocates for children who are also working with kids. So why do I do what I do? It's not an understatement for me to say that this is why I'm on the planet. I feel like it is my life purpose to work with young people, and that could have different expressions. It has had different expressions, but that's why I get up in the morning.
Right.
And it starts with my own kids, and my three boys, which are now my youngest twins just turned 21 this week,
Nice.
and then Janae she's just over 5, and there's there's Janae
Other
up there.
side.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
And she's right now as we speak. She's like, if I look out the window, I see the playground of her preschool and her
Nice.
playing on it. So I don't know. There's no greater joy to me than to connect with kids. And when I go on site visits, I know I probably frustrate some of the folks that lead me on site visits because I do my best to ditch the group
Right.
and go hang out with kids. It really does give me joy. I just and when you can work with something that gives you so much joy, why would you do anything else?
Right, right. So, Michael, speaking of site visits, and there's always that official site visit, and then there's the let's talk to kids and figure out how their day really goes. What is the one memory, the one thing that you always take with you from this field of after school that keeps you going? There's always that one story that we all remember. What's your story?
Well, I have lots of stories, and I've actually have some more stories since coming to this work because, and I've told some of them. I've told some of them at some of the places I've spoke. But when you asked me to share something, Bruno, I actually have this picture
Yes.
on my wall.
Nice.
And now, Bruno, you're a real DJ. You're a pro. That picture is posed.
That's great. The
We
two
were at an
two
outside-
turntables and a
We were on
mixer.
an outside event, but the reason I wanted to show that is because one of the programs that we established in San Francisco it was, I think, 1996, was the urban music program, and there weren't a lot of them out there at that point. We were one of the first DJ clubs in San Francisco, and the reason that is special to me is because this guy in the corner
Yep.
was a middle school kid when it started, and he's still staff with the program 20 years later.
Nice.
And there's this, and there's a bunch of the DJs have formed their own electronic and kind of alternative music group called Children of Funk. And
Nice.
I think they were doing Children of Funk music, but I like to say
Right.
there's some connection there.
You got to take credit.
But there's something that to watch this group of middle school boys and girls find, mentored by John Burnson, who started the program and still runs it 20
Mhm.
years later. Um, find a connection, a human connection that went so far beyond just mentoring. It was family, it was love, it was a sense of place. There was all this, and to see all of those folks just, I mean, they feel like my kids. And so to me, it's like, when I think of one of just the cherished experiences I've had, it's working with not just one story about one kid, but all these kids that have gone through this program and have just stuck around and stayed with it, and the alumni that come back over and over, and that now Urban Music Club, now they're doing, turntables. They're doing electronic stuff. They're working with, what's the industry, the sound engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
and that's STEM.
yeah, all that stuff. So music theory, and my own boys, my twins that just turned 21, when they would come stay with me during the summer, they were part of the urban music program. So that's my memory.
And we always talk about student engagement, right? We always talk about staff engagement. And engagement builds community in our after school and summer learning programs, right? And that's
Yeah.
what this is all about. And it hasn't changed. And now with the quality standards, we're talking about youth voice and leadership. So I appreciate you bringing that example, because we're talking the same things we've always been talking about. Now it's time to just make it intentional, right,
Yeah.
as a field, and be able to have shared language and a shared vision to take us all together to the same place. So again, thank you, Michael, for your time. The last question I have for you is, I read a lot. I always try to not only continue my own education, but also be able to provide more resources for the field and those around me. What is one tool, book, resource, website that you currently use that you would like to share with our viewers?
There's a ton, and I'm just saying, in the moment, this is the book I picked up to show you, but I've probably referred to this small book.
Great, and we'll put the title and the link below in the description below. So be sure to look for it in the description below.
Yeah, and unlike you, I'm not a voracious reader, but I consume a lot of stuff, articles and PDFs and things like that. And one thing I like about this book is it's that thick. Now this is a moniker of the real good to great. But if you want to know the truth, this book was really the catalyst and motivation to motivate us to do the continuous quality improvement. That was part of SB 1221, and it's just starting this year. And the quote, Jim Collins, who wrote the thick Good to Great,
Right.
which is more geared toward industry, wrote this for the social sector. And he opens up the book saying, the minute you think you're great, your slide towards mediocrity has begun.
Right. Right.
And so at the Sunset Neighborhood Beacon, we were getting written up in articles nationally and was traveling places to speak. But I noticed that, if we're not intentional about being as best we can and always improving, then we're sliding.
That's
We
right.
never stay still. And so this book, and then the other one that was really influential back in the day for me that I still think about and refer to, and this is the thick book, but it's kind of a classic
Yes.
in systems thinking.
Yes.
So one of the things that our field is challenged by is you not only have to think about programmatic design and the kind of supports and opportunities that kids need, but there are times where you have to think about the system.
Right.
And what about the system? And that's kind of what I was referring to with policy. But this is a great book, and there's one little section. If you just looked up this much, it's called the laws of the fifth discipline. It's only a few pages. I think about it all the time.
Michael, thank you so much. And again, we'll put all the resources in the description below, so be sure to look for those there. Michael, we really appreciate you as a person that's continuing to push the envelope and continues to help us in this field move forward. I thank you for your time and all that you do for this field. Thank you again.
Well, Bruno, I feel like I'm the one that's blessed to have the chance to work in this position, in this opportunity, with the field of expanded learning in California and the staff here at the Department of Ed, just people who are passionate and dedicated, and you're one of those. So thank you to you too.
Great. Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take care.
Michael. Bye.